And now we are ready for the last speaker of today, Sabine. How, Sabine? Welcome.
Hi, Alessandro. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Okay, I didn't pronounce your last name because I didn't want to butcher it, so please say it for us.
It's Sabine Wojcieszak, so it's easier to pronounce if you do not read it. Just have it in mind.
Okay, I can understand that. So, can you please describe to our audience what your job is? So, if I understand well, you basically work with developers and IT professionals, right?
Yes. So I'm working for GetNext IT. This is a German-based consultancy, and we work with teams to improve collaboration, to introduce agile methods, agile mindsets, and also to improve communication. And sometimes we work with teams and also with leadership. So that's what I do.
Yeah, great. I think that it's wrong who thinks that being a developer means not having to work with people and communication. So your job is probably very, very important for us. Okay, so your talk will be recorded, so you will be available in the chat on Hopin. So feel free to write and ask questions in the meantime. Otherwise, if the question is too complex or if you want to handle that by voice, we'll be doing that after the talk in a Q&A session as we did with other talks. So here's the talk. Thank you, Sabine.
Hope you enjoyed.
Hi folks, welcome to this closing keynote after a long but interesting conference with a lot of insights and learnings. I will now share with you parts of my knowledge and some insights of my daily work about communication and why it is the crucial key to success in uncertainty. Although people always say that communication is a soft skill, I'm pretty sure that this soft skill is a really hard one. Hard to master, but also hard on the consequences, the good ones as well as the bad ones. Maybe you wonder about the handcuffs, just follow my talk and I'm sure you will identify the symbolism behind them. Have you ever heard other people complaining about bad communication within teams or within the company? Or have you ever complained about it, or are you still complaining? Not always, but sometimes. I have heard a lot of these complaints in my workshops as well as in coaching, consulting, or on conferences and networking events, in the elevator or at the canteen, from customers and those who are not our customers yet, in direct conversation or just by listening to others. These are complaints about meetings which are too long or too many meetings, meetings with no outcomes or decisions, meetings with always the same person speaking, complaints about managers who are not listening or not communicating in a clear, understandable way. I didn't know because no one told me is a frequent sentence, as well as there was a misunderstanding. Now we have to spend so much time on fixing it. But also complaints from managers about teams and team members, or complaints within the team. The COVID situation with the working from home approach fueled in many cases bad communication. The fear of losing the contact and control led to more meetings with more people. The bad practice of scheduling the next meeting right after the first one without any break also was not good for a valuable communication. But who am I to talk about bad communication? My name is Sabine Wojcieszak, and I am the enthusiastic, agile and DevOps enabler at GetNext IT, a German-based consultancy. We help teams and organizations to foster collaboration, organize work or deal with changes. Due to the digital transformation, our customers are not only IT companies. We work with organizations in the public administration, as well as companies in the health sector, the engineering industry, print industry, or software companies on national and international base. And I'm also teaching as a lecturer at a university based in Kiel. Agile methods, the agile mindset, culture and communication are important for my work. I am also writing articles and blogs and speak frequently at conferences. We found out that bad communication is one of the top 3 major issues, even if this was not a topic when they hired us for consulting, training or coaching. Bad communication is everywhere. When I work with teams and companies, with employees and leaders, and also with customers. All of them have made experience with bad communication. And all of them have seen the negative results of this bad communication. I'm wondering, what are companies and individuals doing to improve communication? First reaction, oh, we have tried a lot of things, but it doesn't work. We can't change anything. You can imagine that I'm not satisfied with such an answer. I always try to dig deeper and find out what they have done. One of the first choices is we need to communicate more. More meetings with more people and less time to work. And often this more of meetings with more people still has the same result. Less outcome, no decision or no impact. So having more of meaningless meetings is not an improvement. The second choice often is, okay, then let's do one-on-ones. Good idea, but who helps people to run good one-on-ones? And buying a new tool and hoping it will fix everything often is the third choice. And then buying another tool and another tool and another tool, but a new tool will not fix any communication problem. If you add a new tool, it should be something which really adds a benefit and is needed. It should either replace an old existing one, fill a gap in your communication channel stack, or address a complete new but real issue. People in the team need to understand and commit on how to use this tool. We start to communicate from our early beginning, and although we strongly believe that we all can communicate, it turns out that we are often not good enough in it. Are we ignorant or ignorant about communication because we learn it on the fly while growing up? Easy to learn because young children can learn it? Or is it just hard to improve because it is a skill we do have now for so long? Maybe we take it for granted that the others have to understand us, or that others have to explain better, but not that we have to be better. In our heads, bad communication is mostly other people's fault. But what about our responsibility for communication and for understanding? Or is it because this is not the core part of our profession? Fact is, we know communication is also becoming increasingly important for technical professions, especially in times of digital transformation, where we need to foster collaboration between business and tech people. But collaboration does not work without communication. However, neither does technical education at university address those needs, nor do most companies really care about it. And to be honest, I have always done communication trainings in other industries, but when a good friend of mine asked me in 2013 to do communication workshops for his developer team, I thought he was kidding me. But why do I emphasize that communication is becoming more and more important for success? Let's have a look at the world around us. Uncertainty is the term which describes best what is happening all around us. Our world today is filled with and shaped by uncertainty. The last years have shown very clearly what uncertainty means. The climate crisis and also COVID have made uncertainty somehow tangible and real. No one knows what is coming next. No one knows if a decision is a good one or a bad one. It becomes harder to move forward because you would need to make decisions. So uncertainty seems to be a bad place for decisions, for moving forward, for improvements, and maybe for innovation. And it is also a place that does not feel good. The question is, where this uncertainty comes from. The model which describes the situation best is VUCA. VUCA is the model which came up in the late 1980s at the US Army War College. At that time, it described a new order of the world from the political and military point of view. The USSR has broken into pieces, the old well-known enemy was suddenly gone. But new enemies appeared and they were organized and worked in a completely different way. Small independent groups organizing themselves without immense impact with an immense impact of their vision and their goals. The old style, how military and the secret services have worked before, were not longer helpful. The US Army started to look for new approaches. And believe it or not, some of the very cool methods and principles we are using now in the agile world have been used by the US Army before. For example, the idea of team of teams. With the terror attacks in 2001, the VUCA model was transferred to the whole business world. The V stands for volatility, which means that things around us are changing ever faster. This fast change brings a lot of uncertainty because it's not easy to make decisions as no one knows how long this decision will be valid. The uncertainty also grows because of the constantly rising of complexity. The connected world leads to the unknown dependencies. We do a small change at point A, but there is a big side effect somewhere else in the system. And this is really hard to plan. Social media here plays an important role. We all are able to spread the word around the world within seconds and can cause either a shitstorm or create a hype. But also, this is not easy to plan or predict. The A stands for ambiguity. Today we have a lot of data and information available. Access is in most cases very easy. But having a look at the same set of data, the interpretation of it can be completely different due to the point of view. This is sometimes confusing as it becomes harder to decide between right or wrong. This leads to even more uncertainty for individuals as well as companies, for us and for our customers. If we do not address the VUCA world in the right way and pretend that all the old methods, ideas, tools, beliefs, leadership styles and processes are still working, we risk to run into Barney. Barney is a model which came up to describe what is happening around events like the climate crisis or even the pandemic and its effects on systems and decisions. But it can easily be transferred to the situation of companies and organizations. This model was first mentioned in the Medium post Facing the Age of Chaos by Jaime Casio in summer 2020. Let's have a look on Barney. This is what you know by now, the concept of VUCA. Now I will introduce the idea behind Barney. Barney is also an acronym and stands for brittle, anxious, nonlinear and incomprehensible. Brittle means that systems look healthy from the outside, but suddenly, just because of one single event, the whole system breaks into pieces. In nature, the so-called tipping points are an example for that. On the first sight, everything looks good and healthy, but with crossing the tipping point, the whole ecosystem is broken into pieces. If you would have taken a closer look, you could have seen the signs for that, but not at the first sight. This can also happen to organizations. We need a new and better description for the ever faster changing situation. Benchmarks we have used for a long time are not reliable anymore. Cause and effect will replace by delay and disproportion, which is a sigh for huge complexity. Systems thinking also comes into play at this point. The ever-growing uncertainty will cause anxiety and not seldom even fear. Anxiety and fear lead to not making decisions, which is always the worst option. People are bad in understanding nonlinear developments, and with the growing amount of data and the easy access to it, any issue becomes increasingly incomprehensible. This makes discussions and finding solutions even harder. Both VUCA and Barney do not only describe the problem, they also come with concepts to deal with the situation at hand. We have now learned about the problem and have a better understanding for it. Let's now see what we can do. Maybe you have heard about the Cynefin framework by Dave Snowden. If you haven't heard of it, I recommend to take a look at it. The framework divides projects and situations into different categories, the so-called habitats. And you see here that there is a habitat for complexity. Complexity, just remember, was mentioned in VUCA as well as in Barney. And Cynefin says in complexity we need agile methods, agile mindset and business agility to find solutions. The solution which is proposed by VUCA is giving a vision for everyone, aiming at a shared understanding, create clarity about everyone's roles and responsibilities, and again, as mentioned before in Cynefin, to use agile approaches. The VUCA solution is completed by the plus, which stands for trust. Trust is the important value we need to have for working together in uncertain environments. Trust is important to create a culture of psychological safety. This psychological safety is needed to communicate in an open and clear way, and it's needed to take the risk of making mistakes and of being able to talk about them later so that we all can benefit and learn from these mistakes. And you can take one thing for granted. We all will fail in uncertain and complex environments. The vision explains the what. What are we aiming at? The understanding gives us the why. To know the why helps us to navigate in complexity and uncertainty. But for all of this, again, communication is the important key. As agility has now been mentioned several times, we need to have a short look at the Agile Manifesto. Although the Agile Manifesto has come into its ages, now it's not outdated yet. It is still the solid common ground for all agile methods. The Agile Manifesto was never meant as a checklist. It gives values and principles which should be discussed by the teams. What do they understand? How can this principle help them to become better? What is the shared understanding for that specific team? By the way, the Agile Manifesto and its principles are more and more adjusted and adapted by other industries. Due to VUCA and the digital transformation, nearly all other industries are now on their ways to more agility. And one thing is indisputable. Good and open communication is required all over the manifesto, implicitly and explicitly. Last but not least, Barney also comes with a solution. To deal with brittleness, we should care about resilience and capacity. Strengthen the capacity and the resilience of individuals as well as of the whole company are important tasks. The Netflix Chaos Monkey is an approach which addresses this. Empathy and mindfulness are helpful to deal with anxiety. More and more companies offer meditation and yoga to their employees. It is scientifically proven that the exercise of meditation helps people in situations full of fear. There are some interesting studies about this with the US Army. The non-linearity makes it important to deliver context for better understanding and also to tell stories which make it easier to adapt it to the own situation are valuable. Transparency and using intuition are good to deal with the incomprehensibility. And again we see all this requires communication. Let's have a look at this magic thing called communication. There are a lot of aspects around communication. We will discuss them now. Communication is not only a skill, it is also a behavior. It is a question of culture and it is a technique. The techniques are easier to learn. Changing the own behavior needs some more efforts. Paul Watzlawick once said, we cannot not communicate. This means as soon as at least two people come together, communication starts immediately, even if not a single word is spoken. Imagine you are entering a room. Someone is sitting there, looking at the laptop. You say, hi. No answer. There is information in it, but it's not clear what kind of information exactly. Maybe it is, please don't disturb me, I'm working, or I don't want to talk to you, or I'm too shy, or simply the person has not heard you. What you feel about the situation is depending on your interpretation. And now imagine you're sending an email and there is no answer. What do you think about it and what do you feel? So even not reacting is an information. The dangerous thing is, this might be misinterpreted. Always have this in mind. Communication is about talking and speaking with other people, but it's also about writing and reading. But when we write and read, there is a lack of information. We don't have the context delivered by the voice and the body language. This is why giving feedback in a written way is much harder than in a face-to-face conversation. Communication is also about using words, the right words, and how we interpret them. With choosing a different wording, we can cause different emotions and assumptions in people. Nudging is the term for influencing and manipulating people. This can happen also with the right words. Let's have an example how words can influence your thinking. Statement 1. 2 cars were involved in an accident. Statement 2. 2 cars crashed heavily together. If we compare these two statements, people will most likely tend to assume that the cars in the second statement had a much higher speed. This will influence our thinking about this accident. In our daily business, this happens again and again. Colleagues and managers want to make issues more important and say, our customers always complain about it. But what does always mean in real numbers? Our body language is another but very important part of communication. If your body language does not express what you are saying with words, people will most probably believe what they see, the body language. If you say, hey Sabine, it's okay that you have failed this time, but you are rolling your eyes and look angry, I will not believe that it is okay for you. If people are not willing to believe what you are saying, check your body language. There's a good chance for a cognitive dissonance. Our behavior and our shown empathy are also some kind of communication. If we say people are important to us, but we treat them bad and do not show empathy, no one believes that people are really important to us. Eat your own dog food means do what you are saying, do what you are expecting of others. Visualizing and showing things is also communication. But when we talk about communication, we also need to talk about listening. Hear what is in between the lines, looking at others and seeing their reactions, feeling what is going on. All this is also part of communication. And today we also need to think about all the different channels we can use to communicate. All of them have special requirements in our communication. And communication is also the question of the role. Are you sender or receiver? You see, communication has a lot of aspects. It's not enough to simply say we have a bad communication. If you want to improve your communication, you need to find out which of these aspects are not working properly, but are important for your success. Only then you can find the right approaches for improvement. All the off-the-shelf workshops for communication can only give an overview about what is possible. They will not solve your individual problems. If you really have communication problems, look for customized workshops with a good requirements analysis and a beforehand and a good coach. Bad communication comes with a lot of risks. These risks will captivate the team's capabilities. One risk is to do the wrong thing, do the right thing wrong, or do the wrong thing right. But still it means that it's wrong, and wrong can be expensive. Let's talk about money. When we accept bad communication without doing something about it, we could also burn money. But it's not only the money for the actual project or product. It is about customer satisfaction and it is about reputation. These are external factors. And it is also about motivation and engagement, about learning and improving on the internal side. We can exactly name the amount of money which will be lost if a project fails. But we can only assume what cost will be caused by bad reputation. And we have no idea about the cost and the lost profits by demotivated and disengaged people in our team. So now you might think we need to do whatever it takes to lift communication up to the level of perfectionism. But this is also very costly. It will take too much time and to create a perfect communication without any misunderstandings. And it can also be annoying and demotivating for team members if we stress it too much. I would even say it's impossible. Misunderstandings are part of our lives. We can try to reduce them with more training and awareness for the most common pitfalls and our special needs. And there should be an ongoing process of learning and improving, but we will never be able to delete misunderstandings completely. What we really should care about is not to risk motivation and engagement, neither by bad communication nor by the attempt of making communication perfect. If we can't go for the perfect system with which we can avoid all misunderstandings, what is then the goal for improving communication? What we need is a culture of appreciative communication, where everyone is willing to take responsibility for a good communication. This means that we don't complain about it when it's too late, but we give feedback and ask questions as soon as possible. It also means to be open to the points of views of others and to deal with our own biases in an open way. It is helpful to ask ourselves if we are biased and why we have this special opinion and if there is another possibility. Making processes, goals, visions and expectations transparent is also helpful for good communication. For continuously improving our communication as well as our collaboration, our products, our processes, we also need trust. Only with trust and psychological safety we can communicate openly and address issues without fear. But for building trust and psychological safety, again, we need communication. Both go hand in hand, and this means that it is a step-by-step approach and not a thing you can simply buy. It is also important to foster awareness for the outcome of bad communication and that it is a task for everyone. What can I do to improve our communication is always a good question to ask. Empathy is important for good communication. Even if we want to talk about facts, we need to have in mind that we talk with another human being, with feelings, with moods, with hopes and anxieties. We should consider this and not ignore it. The author and consultant Simon Sinek gives in one of his talks a very good example what it means to show empathy. Imagine a team member has underperformed during the last quarter of the year. As the team lead, you talk to the employee and say, listen, your numbers during the last period have not been exactly what was expected. You have not reached your goals. If this happens again, I'm pretty sure that we will need to let you go. This is transparent and it's honest, but not empathetic. Certainly, one can say that the employee has the chance to improve the performance, but it also can cause fear and pressure. And people with fear and under pressure are not motivated and they tend to make mistakes. With empathy, it would be more like, I'm worried about you. I've just seen the results of the last quarter and this is not what I'm used to from you. Is everything okay with you, or is there anything I can help with? What do you need from me? Just with showing this empathy, the upcoming communication will have a completely different focus. It will turn away from the blame and defense mode towards a solution and future-oriented view. When we create a culture of communication with these values, we have a good frame for improving our overall communication. And all these values are also important for succeeding in VUCA and Barney. Now let's have a look at some helpful key concepts for better communication in complex environments. But these are only some examples. As I said previously, I cannot deliver the one-size-fits-all solution as your individual issues might be different. I have chosen some concepts which are more generic. Improving communication is not always about more of it. we should also take a look at more quality within our communication. For example, avoiding such kind of manipulation via nudging. We should take care more about outcome, like better decisions or better understanding. And we should take care about a meaningful communication. Do we really mean what we are saying, or are we just talking around? One major mistake is the assumption that other people can read what is inside your head. This is a superpower no one really has. And even those people who pretend that they can read our minds are only excellent observers and use some special techniques to get more information from you. For those of us who don't have the superpower, following principle is helpful. Explicit is better than implicit. Don't think my colleague knows what I'm talking about, or my team knows what I'm expecting. In the role of the sender, it is better to make explicit. Even if it costs some time now, it will definitely save more time in the end. To make sure that everything was well understood, ask someone to explain in own words. But this principle is also valid for the receiver's role. Read between the lines, hear what is not said. Peter Drucker once said, the most important information is between the lines. And if something is not clear or obvious enough, ask for more clarification. Another way is to wrap up everything in your own words at the end and ask if you got it right. Both the sender as well as the receiver can take action on this principle. Here are some simple advices for sender and receiver. As a sender, set an intention for yourself. This helps to stay focused. Give context with storytelling. Explain the why behind the story. And be aware of your biases. They will influence the way how you talk and behave. For the receiver, it is to be open to understand. And always listen carefully and do not stare at the screen or your laptop while listening. Accept that other people might have a different point of view. And again, be aware of your biases. They will influence how you will understand the delivered information. And now I will add some interesting fact. Always have in mind that you are sender and receiver at the same time. Always. While you are sending, you are also receiving actions as information and vice versa. And this makes communication really complex. So concentrate on the communication. The concept of being the most stupid person in the room addresses one major issue in communication: not asking the important question. This concept has not really something to do with being stupid. The name of this role relates to the fear of a lot of people when they have to ask questions. In their minds, asking questions is equated with admitting to have no idea, knowledge or expertise. But in reality, asking questions is a sign for being a professional. The most stupid person in the room asks those questions no one else feels comfortable to ask. I have been in meetings with teams or managers where one person explained complex stuff and everyone was nodding. As you know, every presentation ends with "any questions?" and the nodding turned into shaking the heads. And as my impression was that they have not understood, I asked, "Okay, can you please explain A, B or C to me in your own words? What does it mean for the product, the team, etc.? The result, no one could do that. If your meetings suffer from individuals who love to talk very much, especially if this does not add valuable information, introducing the concept of the yellow and red cards can be helpful. Nearly everyone knows the idea of yellow and red cards from football or handball. This makes it really easy to explain and use. Just commit on when to use the yellow and the red one and the meaning for the meeting. Showing the yellow card can, for example, mean you have 30 more seconds. If you do not add a new important aspect, you have to stop then. The red one can have, for example, the rule, nothing new, not important. Please finish your sentence and then stop it. How to use it in practice? Have 2 or 3 sets of yellow and red cards. Ask who wants to take the role and give them the cards. The people with the cards act like referees. I'm using it in teams having trouble with this. The interesting fact is that usually they do not have to use the cards. Introducing the cards and the rules is in most cases enough to make people more aware of their communication and their behavior. Another observation is that suddenly also those who do not have the role start to take responsibility and ask for the cards if they feel that it's necessary. Also, setting a time box and having a timekeeper is really helpful. You can limit time per topic or discussion, but you can also limit the time per individual contribution. Which approach you choose is depending on your issue. This concept is well known from stand-ups, but can easily be transferred to other meetings. Beating around the bush and coming up with more and more additional hypotheses, ideas and assumptions will not add more clarity. It can, in the contrary, lead to even more confusion. And also, like in stand-ups, do a meeting without chairs can really be a good choice to stay more focused. Using visualization as often as possible is one of the most important concepts for good communication. No matter if you are in a meeting or in a one-on-one, in person or remote, visuals help our brains to understand complex topics much easier. This is also proven by neuroscientific research. Visuals help to get the big picture. We can better agree on our shared point of view. And visuals helps to identify misunderstandings. With visualization, we can focus on the what instead of the who. Use a napkin, the flip chart and the whiteboard, whatever is available. Not only talk, show. Make yourself familiar with methods supporting visualization. There are a lot available, for example, user story mapping or event storming, team canvases, the value proposition canvas, or the concept of the Mobius outcome deliver. Also, using Kanban is a way of visualizing work and conduct better communication. Visuals also support interactivity. And interactivity is good for more engagement, and people engaging themselves will likely take more responsibility for the results. There are methods and canvas templates for many use cases and issues available, which help you to communicate more effective and efficient through visualization. Another example for visuals and finding a shared understanding is the communication protocol. This is really helpful in our digital times where we can use a lot of different channels for our communication. It is not very productive if everyone uses personally preferred channels to convey information. Better is that we commit on same standards. That makes it easier for us to find information later. It is also important to discuss expectations we have on reaction times and availabilities. With the beginning of working from home, one of the teams I do coaching with had some uncertainty about until when in the evening everyone needs to be available. Some people in the team wanted to be offline after finishing daily work, but they had the impression that this was not wanted by management. This caused some dissatisfaction. Others were happy of just writing down ideas in the evening to get them out of their heads. With this canvas, you can also find out if there is an important way missing or if there is a doublet. Now be honest to yourself. What have you done during this conference? Always listened and focused on the talks? Or have you checked and answered emails, team chats, or even written some code? The good thing is you don't know what you have missed. The bad thing is you definitely have missed information. And just one good advice, better double check the code you have written before you checked it in. And maybe better to not check the emails you have sent. That might be frustrating. Communication is complex. Listening, reacting, asking questions, taking care of the own body language, being sender and receiver at the same time, and many more things. Whenever it comes to complex tasks, we need to concentrate and focus. You want to communicate in a better way? Then stop multitasking. Close your laptop, put away your smartphone and start eye contact. It is not only good for more quality in communication, it is also respectful and shows appreciation. Commit on not having technical devices in meetings. You will be surprised how much more contribution you will have and how the quality of communication and results will increase, mostly in less time. But to give you a number, only 2% of all people in the world are capable of multitasking. If your attempts of improving your communication are successful, this will open the handcuffs of your team and unleash their full potential. One of my hardest challenges was a team which was not communicating that much. The yes but was always the introduction of one of the nearly rare sentences. A lot of the work was either done at least twice because of bad communication or wasn't done at all because everyone assumed that someone else will do this. Everyone had an own understanding and idea about what to do and the quality behind it. So we introduced Kanban and other visualizations. And after a while, conversation became much easier. I have celebrated inside myself when I was sitting at my desk and I heard 3 of the team members standing in front of the Kanban board and discussing about the work on it. Since then, their communication is improving constantly. A good sign for successful improvement of communication is that team members feel eager to ask questions and stop to take assumptions for granted. Success is also when you start to use visuals more often to use them for communication. A sign for success is also when team asks for whiteboards, flip charts or post-its. And when the team starts to stand together and talk with each other, even if this is a private conversation, it is a reason to celebrate. Having a good interpersonal connection helps in difficult situations to communicate better and easier. And success is also if motivation and engagement are growing. Motivated and engaged people will find better solutions for complex problems. They will be easier able to adapt changes. Everything you need to succeed in complex projects in VUCA and in Barney. If you want to measure your success, you can use a simple communication health check. Create a set of questions and ask the team to answer these questions with green, yellow and red cards. Collect the results. Together with the team, you should take a closer look at those questions answered with more red than yellow or green. They give a hint on what you can start to work on, but please always ask for the why. Maybe what you see is only a symptom. The reason might be somewhere else. Repeat this exercise with the same set of questions around communication constantly after a while. You can now compare the results and see progress. We have seen that the complex and uncertain world around us needs an open and good communication to be successful. This communication helps us to understand and make decisions. It also helps us to build strong and supportive networks. As we can't solve complex problems alone, we need these networks. Diversity on the one hand helps us to understand different points of view and to get better solutions in complexity and uncertainty. But on the other hand, diversity requires also an open communication and an open mind. The transparency delivered by an open and clear communication is helpful for each individual to not feel lost in these uncertain times. But we also learned that there is no one-size-fits-all solution to fix communication. Start with identifying your problems and then look for solutions to address these problems. Please have in mind that more communication is not automatically meaning better communication. Sometimes it can even do harm. It is more about the quality of your communication. You can do a lot to improve communication, but keep it agile. Do that which adds value to you and your team. I hope you got some helpful insights for your daily work. Thanks for joining this talk. Feel free to connect via social media, and I'm now happy to answer your questions.
Okay, and we're back. Thank you, Sabine, for the talk.
Yeah, welcome.
Very interesting. And I think we have a couple of questions that we can address in the Q&A section. The first one is from Eugene, which is, what would you recommend against passive-aggressive code reviews? Oh, pretty specific.
Yes, that's very specific, but it's interesting. And I think it's not only about code reviews. This can happen everywhere. We have to work a lot with feedback in our agile environment, because feedback is a good source for improvement. And so whenever we have the impression that someone is reacting passive-aggressive against us, I think we should address this in an open way and say, hey, this is my impression. Can you please explain if this is what you want to tell me, or can you say it in different words? And if this does not work, or I'm not sure about doing this, I should take a moderator within this discussion. So like an agile coach or the scrum master or someone neutral who can help addressing this issue and saying, okay, I am the neutral person here in the room, and I also have the impression that this is somehow not very nice what you say, and then try to say it in another way and put yourself in the shoes, for example, in Sabine's shoes, and just imagine how you would feel if you would get this reaction. Yeah, so, and I think it's important to address it and not just to say, okay, this is her or his style, and okay, I don't say anything. Address it. If you do not feel good with it, address it, and yeah, explain also what you're feeling about this.
Yeah, sure. That's really true. And I found myself a couple of times on the other side of this issue where I was too much assertive in the code reviews. And I've seen a couple of talks about, code reviews in particular, that says that sometimes you can try to expose your thoughts as questions. Yes. Because in this way you get an open answer, and sometimes you just discover that you have the wrong assumptions. So you were asking to correct something because you didn't know the full picture or stuff like that. And that's a powerful way to avoid confrontational and avoid being aggressive to a colleague.
Yeah, but that would mean that you already have identified that you are acting in this way. Yeah, so the first step would be that someone makes you aware of this. And then the second step would be that you try to find another way to do it. So, and you're absolutely right. To explaining your point of view, what is your view on this topic, and ask if this is what the other want to do, if you got it right, and explain it. This might be helpful. So this is also a technique when you give feedback, that you put the other into the awareness of your thoughts. So giving feedback has always something to do with from which direction do I look on this issue? What kind of emotion does this cause inside of me? And what do I wish? And maybe also asking, is this what you really intended to do? Yeah. And maybe we have a misunderstanding here, so we can talk about it. So
you're addressing it directly, the fact that it may be an unintentional misunderstanding.
Yes. Yeah. So no one of us is the one who is always right. And in our complex times, there is no one right. We have different options which can be right, depending on the context, on the point of view. So we need to make clear what is our point of view, what is our direction.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask a question myself, and since we are living in this way with the pandemic and so on, working from home from 1 year and a half basically, and probably a lot of us will continuing working this way even after. Do you think that this situation has some direct issues in communication I'll try to give you a practical example. I was listening to someone talking about using tools and stuff like Kanban and using them in a distant world where you have to do this online. And he was talking about that communication is hindered even by hardware, in the means that if you have a crappy microphone, you're hurting your listener because it doesn't hear you well. Or if you want to talk to someone even face-to-face with a webcam, you're exactly not looking at them, because looking at your face is not the same as looking at the webcam. And that is unconsciously received as something dismissive, because I'm not looking at you. And you have to consciously think, oh, it's looking at the webcam, it's not ignoring me. Do you think that this kind of stuff really will need to be addressed from this point on?
Definitely. This makes a huge difference, because when we talk about communication, we do not only talk about the words itself, but also a lot about body language. Yeah, body language is an important part. And so this has a lot to do with it. So in Germany, we have a lot of regions where we do not have a good internet connection. And so a lot of people do not turn on the camera while we have, for example, online workshops or some meetings. And this is, then I can pick up the phone and have a call with them. Then I do not need to have it remotely via the laptop. Yeah. So, and I always say, oh, come on, when we have a video call, the video is in there because we should have our cameras on. Please turn your cameras on, because I cannot see any kind of reaction in something like this. So I think this is what people really have to learn, that it's important to have all the available ways at hand, so that we can get as much information as possible. And we have to learn to deal with where the camera is placed. I have now ordered myself a mid-screen camera to make it easier, so that I can have my camera in the middle of the screen and have the impression that I look into someone's face, but I'm looking also into the camera. So.
Yeah, no, that's probably a point where the digital divide or differences in, as you said, in connection and stuff like that is really playing a role, and it's need to be addressed, right?
Yeah. Take for example all these tools for preparing presentations. Where are the speaker notes? They are at the bottom of the screen. But when we have to do the recordings, yeah, we should look at the camera, and then the speaker notes have to be at the top of the screen and not at the bottom. And so when all these tools were prepared, no one thought of doing so much online presentations than we are doing now.
I think that we were talking about this and we are having issues with my cam. Let's see if I can restart it and fix it.
You are back.
Okay. well, I just call it on myself. That.
Yeah, so I think also the role of the moderator during a meeting has changed a lot, because now we are suddenly some kind of support people for technical issues and all those stuff, which makes it much harder. So, yeah.
Yeah. We had an issue like that while I was emceeing last year, and we had to step in to talk, because it's not the same when you are in a room during a conference in person. You can, oh, guy, you have a problem with your mic, your PC, your slide, anything. So it's even harder to give feedback to the speaker in these situations.
Yes.
Okay, so we have one question from Nicola. How to introduce agile methods without personal ping in a group where personal ping is more fast? How to start the migration to a more smart and agile environment? I think that by personal ping they mean avoid the fact that who's requiring the work goes directly to the single developer or something like that. I have seen these kind of issues in the past.
Okay, so how to introduce and how to start are questions I cannot answer, because it depends where you are at the moment. So first of all, we need to find out what is your actual situation, and then you can make a decision what are the next steps. This is really agile, because agile has nothing to do with, okay, I take a recipe and I put it on the team and that's the way we have to go. No, it starts, where are we? what is the most important thing we need to change. And introducing agile methods can start by doing stand-ups each day, or by doing regularly retrospectives or something like this. This can be all of the kinds of agile methods, and it depends what has the most benefit at your situation right now.
Yeah, no, I can understand. And in fact, I wanted to build up on this question. Do you think that these kind of issues and others can be tackled on a personal level, on a single person, or they have to be resolved on a company level when you're working?
So you mean introducing something like agile methods or something like that?
Or simply trying to tackle communication issues, whatever the solution is?
So both is helpful. Especially communication is also an issue which everyone of us can address by simply just asking question, what can I do to improve my communication? What can I do to express in a more clear way? What can I do when I do not get the information I need? Yeah, simply by just standing up saying, okay, can you please explain it again? I think I have not understood it in the whole way. So just not saying, okay, I have not understood, it's not my problem, maybe someone else has. So just make it clear, I have not understood. This is a very individual thing I can do. But it's also a thing the whole team as well as the company can address. And when you talk about agility, it's also a thing we can do within our team, in our small group, that we say, okay, we want to work in a more agile way. And if we as a team decide this, it's also an issue of everyone. But to get the whole benefit out of agility, we need at least the support of the whole company. Without the support of the company, it does not work, because as soon as we get to the borders of our team, all the efficiency of agile run into nothing.
Yeah, sure. But well, we surely have to communicate outside of the team. You're not an island.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, let me check. Maybe there's another question. Okay, this is a bit meta. I'm frozen again. Oh, come on. Well, I think my webcam is giving up after 8 hours of work, probably. Well, the last question is a bit meta because it's asking, do you think that a recorded talk has a different effectiveness instead of a live one?
No. So, to be honest, we were asked to pre-record the talks, and I can completely understand this, because if the internet connection is not that good or something happens with the camera and you're still frozen, it's better for organizers if they have a pre-recorded talk at hand so that they can just use it for that. I can completely understand this, and I have done this for other conferences as well. My favorite is giving a live talk on stage.
Obviously.
And doing a live session on the computer, I do not really like this, because I like the feedback of the audience, the in-time feedback, and this is not happening here. So for me, it does not make a difference to pre-record it or give it live. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, no, I have the same opinion, and we encounter the same issues even in smaller situations, like in meetups online that like we are doing in the last year, or even in workshops. Even if it's an interactive workshop, there are long period of times where someone is speaking and teaching and talking about something, and since it's one way, you cannot interact in any way, even with body language or anything. It's a lot. Well, basically the bandwidth for communication is a lot reduced, and it's not just getting feedback from the audience. I think it's also that you have more way of expressing yourself, because you can pace around, you can go to the projector and indicate something, or try to look to someone, or articulate with the hands a lot, like as Italians like to do. And I am feeling a bit constrained like in this way. And so, that's a lot different. And also that's the thing that you said before about speaker notes. It's a lot harder when you have to look down to get the notes. And when you are in person, you have the speaker notes in front of you and the projector is behind you. So it's completely different. It's completely splitted. And the people can look at, you can see if people is looking at you or is looking at the slides. So, for example, something that I learned in the past is that you have to avoid reading the slides. Otherwise, the people start looking there and stop listening to you. Yeah, which is really bad because you basically fail totally to deliver the talk. And I had this issue. I tend to in the past to write a lot in the slides and just repeat. And that was really hard because basically, even if they didn't want, the public started to ignore what I was saying. So if in some part of the talk I deviated from there, they probably lost it because they were distracted trying to keep up with all the paragraphs.
Yeah, you have seen my slides, so there's not so much text on it.
Yeah, I've learned that it's better. Okay, I don't know if there are more questions. Let me check. No, just people kidding about my phrasing. Am I kidding myself? So I can thank you again, Sabine, for your talk. Thank you very much. Let's hope that we can see ourselves in person on a conference next year. And so, well, thank you.
Thank you for taking me. Bye-bye.
You're welcome.
Oh.